Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive with us.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be exploring this fascinating concept that might just change how we all think about raising kids.
Oh, yeah.
You know how some cultures just seem to really get parenting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Scandinavian countries,
Yeah.
especially Sweden,
Absolutely.
they're often praised for raising incredibly resilient and independent kids
Yes.
and eco-conscious kids.
Very much so.
And there's this one cultural value that seems to be at the heart of it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's called friluftsliv,
Yes.
which translates to open-air life.
Open air life.
And we're going to be using Linda Akeson McGurk's book, There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather, as our guide for this deep dive.
Sounds great.
So get ready to uncover the secrets of Scandinavian parenting
I'm ready.
and how friluftsliv shapes childhood development.
Yeah, so it's not just about spending time outdoors, though.
Right.
It's this philosophy that's woven into their entire culture,
Interesting.
from their laws to their education system.
Okay, let's break this down. What exactly does this friluftsliv look like in everyday life?
Well, imagine
Yeah.
having the legal right to roam freely on private land for recreation.
Wow.
That's the concept of allemansrätten in Sweden.
Okay.
It's like a giant nationwide invitation to connect with nature.
So cool.
Of course, it comes with responsibilities,
Okay.
respecting the land,
Right.
leaving no trace,
Of course.
and being mindful of others.
So it's not just about having fun out there,
Right.
but it's about understanding that access to nature comes with a responsibility to protect it.
Yes,
I
exactly.
like that.
And this deep respect for nature is also reflected in their approach to education.
Okay.
You know how we talked about
Yeah.
how much emphasis we put on early academics?
Yeah.
Well, in Scandinavian preschools, play is king.
Really?
These forest schools are amazing.
Interesting.
Kids spend most of their day learning and playing in nature.
Wow.
Rain or shine, all year round.
So they literally see nature as a classroom.
Absolutely. They believe that direct contact with the environment offers learning experiences you just can't replicate inside.
That makes sense.
And research from places like MIT and UC Berkeley backs this up.
Oh, wow.
Studies show that play-based learning helps children develop essential skills like creativity,
Yep.
problem solving,
Yeah.
and social intelligence.
So while we might be busy drilling our kids on letters and numbers,
Yeah,
they're building forts and climbing trees and using their imaginations.
exactly.
And this approach isn't just about fun.
Right.
It's about creating a foundation for lifelong learning.
It's about fostering a love for learning that goes beyond textbooks and worksheets.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, McGurk herself had a truly friluftsliv upbringing.
She did?
She grew up in Sweden
Mm.
and then later moved to Montana.
Yeah.
It sounds like those were two very different worlds.
It was quite a culture shock for her.
I bet.
She describes how in Montana, everything revolved around cars,
Okay.
errands,
Mhm.
school pickups, even just getting around. It all happened from behind the wheel. But
Wow.
in Sweden,
Yeah.
walking, biking, and being outdoors were simply part of daily life.
That's a great example of how our surroundings can either encourage or discourage a connection with nature.
Absolutely. And speaking of culture clashes,
Okay.
let's talk about something that might surprise you.
What's that?
The Scandinavian fresh air obsession.
I've heard stories about babies napping outside in freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
Is that really a thing?
It is, and it's not considered extreme at all.
Oh, wow.
In fact, it's seen as completely normal and even healthy.
Really?
They bundle those babies up in special weatherproof gear
Okay.
and let them snooze peacefully in their prams, no
Wow.
matter the weather.
No matter the weather.
Now, of course, safety is paramount.
Yeah.
Parents monitor closely,
Of course.
dress their babies appropriately for the temperature,
Right?
and follow specific guidelines.
But isn't that kind of, well, different from what we're used to?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about that incident in New York City,
Oh.
where a Danish tourist was practically crucified for leaving her baby napping outside a restaurant.
Yes, the Danish baby and stroller incident.
Right.
It perfectly illustrates how cultural norms around parenting can be so different.
Yeah.
What's routine in one culture can seem completely outrageous in another.
Right. It's like those two worlds collided, and nobody knew what to make of it.
Exactly.
And the funny thing is,
Yeah.
Scandinavian healthcare professionals fully endorse this outdoor time.
They do.
Doctors and nurses actually encourage parents to get their kids outside every day,
They do.
even when they're a little under the weather.
Even when they're sick.
They believe fresh air helps boost the immune system and speeds up recovery.
Yeah.
That makes you wonder, are we a little too quick to confine our kids indoors?
Right.
Maybe a little fresh air even when they're not feeling 100%
Uh,
could actually be beneficial.
it definitely challenges our assumptions about what's best for our kids, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great segue into our next topic. Because this difference in thinking really shows up when we look at Scandinavian and American preschools.
You're talking about the emphasis on early academics versus playwright.
Exactly.
Mhm.
McGurk talks about how she was surprised by the kindergarten screening process in the U.S.
Yeah.
The focus on drilling academic facts at such a young age
Yeah.
really contrasted with her Swedish upbringing, where play was the primary mode of learning.
This is where those contrasting philosophies on early childhood development really stand out.
Okay.
In Scandinavia, play isn't seen as a distraction from learning.
Right.
It's considered the foundation of it.
Interesting.
They believe it develops crucial skills like critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
creativity,
Yeah.
and problem solving,
Makes sense.
which are so important for success later in life.
So it's about equipping them with the tools to learn,
Yeah,
not just filling their heads with facts.
exactly. And it's not just about academics.
Right.
Scandinavian preschools also foster a deep connection with nature,
Okay.
which is a key part of Friluftsliv. They even have these annual litter pickup events.
Oh, wow.
It's like a big community effort
Yeah.
where the kids learn about taking care of the environment
Yeah.
in a really hands-on way.
It's turning chores into an adventure, right?
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
And what about those eco-conscious school lunches McGurk talks about?
Oh, they're fascinating.
Yeah.
They're a fascinating example of how sustainability is woven into their daily lives.
Okay.
School lunches are often vegetarian,
Interesting.
with a strong focus on reducing food waste.
I see.
And they even adjust the menus based on the season
Okay.
and what's locally available.
Wow.
It's all about teaching kids to be mindful of where their food comes from
Right.
and the impact it has on the planet.
So while we're debating the merits of pizza versus chicken nuggets,
Yeah.
they're serving up locally sourced seasonal meals.
Right.
Okay, I have to ask about this.
What's that?
Scandinavian parents seem totally cool with dirt and messy play. It's a big contrast to the whole hand sanitizer germaphobe culture we often see here.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting?
What?
Recent research is starting to challenge our assumptions about cleanliness.
Right, Larry.
Scientists are finding that exposure to a diverse range of microbes is actually crucial for building a strong immune system.
So maybe a little dirt is actually good for them.
Exactly.
Wow.
McGurk even quotes immunologists
Okay.
who believe that our obsession with sanitizing everything might be backfiring,
Mm-hmm.
leading to weaker immune systems and an increase in allergies and autoimmune disorders.
I mean, I'm all for hand washing,
Yeah.
but maybe we've taken it a bit too far.
Perhaps, and there's this pediatric neurologist, Maya Shatrit-Klein,
Right.
who wrote a book called The Dirt Cure.
Interesting.
She argues that exposure to dirt and microbes
Yeah.
is essential for children's physical and mental development.
Makes you rethink those mud puddles a little, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about independence. Scandinavian kids are known for their freedom and self-reliance.
Mm-hmm.
They're walking to school alone, playing unsupervised.
Right.
Seems like a different world.
It is, and it stems from a deep trust in children's abilities
Okay.
and a belief that allowing them to navigate risks is crucial for their development.
Interesting.
Think about those playgrounds in Scandinavia.
Okay.
They're often designed to encourage exploration and risk-taking
Uh-huh.
with features like climbing structures,
Yeah.
rope swings,
I see.
and natural elements.
That's so different from the cookie-cutter playgrounds we often see here,
Yeah,
with their rubberized surfaces and limited climbing options.
it's a different philosophy.
Yeah.
They see those bump scrapes and even the occasional fall as
What?
learning opportunities.
It's about building resilience,
Yeah.
both physically and mentally.
Exactly. And this trust extends to letting kids roam freely in their neighborhoods.
Which is totally at odds with the whole free-range kids controversy we had here, where parents were investigated for letting their children play unsupervised in a park.
What's considered neglectful in one culture is
Yeah.
seen as normal and even beneficial in another.
Wow.
It's about giving kids the space and freedom to explore, make decisions,
Wise.
and develop a sense of responsibility for themselves.
McGurk talks about how she was initially hesitant to let her own kids have that level of freedom in Sweden,
Yeah,
but she gradually embraced it
she did.
and saw how much it boosted their confidence and independence.
It's a reminder that sometimes the best thing we can do as parents is step back and let our kids figure things out on their own.
Now, of course, we can't just plop our kids in a Scandinavian forest and expect them to thrive.
Right.
But we can learn from their approach, right?
Absolutely. It's about finding ways to incorporate those principles of relentless into our own lives,
So,
even if we don't live in a Scandinavian country.
so where do we even start? I
Yeah.
mean, with all the screens and digital distractions?
Right.
Getting kids outside can feel like an uphill battle.
You're right. It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but even small steps can make a big difference.
So how do Scandinavian parents manage the whole screen time thing? It's something we all struggle with.
They're definitely mindful of it. McGurk talks about her own struggles with screen time limits and finding support from other Swedish parents. They're increasingly concerned about digital addiction and how it can impact kids' connection with nature. But it's not about banning technology altogether.
Right.
It's about being intentional and setting limits.
It's about creating a balance, right?
Exactly.
So what are some things they do differently?
Well, many families have device-free meals, and they set clear screen time limits. But what's really interesting is that they encourage alternative activities. Instead of just saying no to screens, they offer other options that are more engaging.
Okay.
Things like playing outside, reading, building, creating. They make those offline experiences more enticing.
It's about shifting the focus, right? Instead of just saying no screens, they're saying yes to other things. And, it's not just up to parents to create this balance. McGurk talks about how communities play a huge role.
Absolutely. Imagine living in a place where playgrounds are designed for adventure,
Yeah.
where parks and green spaces are easily accessible,
Right.
and where there's a strong sense of community that supports outdoor play.
Mm.
That's the kind of environment that makes friluftsliv live a natural part of life.
And remember those Swedish scouts we talked about earlier? They practically live and breathe friluftsliv.
Right. They meet in the woods, build fires, use tools, cook outdoors, all with minimal adult supervision. They're learning practical skills, building confidence, and developing a deep respect for nature.
It's amazing how much trust they place in kids.
Yeah.
And McGurk saw the same thing when she let her own daughters have more freedom in Sweden. They blossomed, didn't they?
They did. She talks about how much more confident and resilient they became when they were allowed to explore and navigate their world with less adult intervention.
It's a beautiful reminder that sometimes the best thing we can do as parents is let go a little
Yeah.
and trust our kids to find their way.
And it all comes back to that core value of friluftsliv. It's about embracing the outdoors, not just as a place to escape to, but as an integral part of life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the
Yeah.
one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I hope they're inspired to bring a little more friluftsliv into their own lives.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a huge life-altering change. It could be as simple as a daily walk in nature,
Mm-hmm.
a family hike on the weekends, or just making a conscious effort to put down the devices and spend more time outdoors.
Maybe it's about finding a local forest school,
Yeah.
creating a nature play area in the backyard, or even just letting those mud puddles be a little less scary.
Exactly. Every little step counts.
And remember, as they say in Scandinavia, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes.
That's a great one to remember.
Thanks for joining us on this Scandinavian adventure. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the book, studies, and other resources. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.